Chapter 28. A Fresh Start. Mr. Penguin asked the question out loud, and everyone turned to look at the strange woman sitting in the shadows. Well, said Reginald, her plan really was very dastardly indeed. Taking over the world and controlling everyone in it. We'll take her with us to Cityville, and I'll hand her over to the police with my top-secret report and Dr. Mesmero's notebook. Mr. Penguin nodded. He supposed that was the right thing to do. Dr. Mesmero had been terrifically naughty and caused a lot of dangerous things to happen. Helga changed the subject by bringing even more food to the table, and soon the kitchen was bright and zingy. It felt like a tea party, except, of course, it was breakfast time. But while Mr. Penguin tucked into his second and third helpings of grub, he looked around the room at all the friendly faces and felt a little bit sad. From reading her notebook, it seemed like Dr. Mesmero had never really had a nice happy time like the one he was having now with his friends. Maybe if she had had nice friends like Mr. Penguin's, she wouldn't have tried to take over the world. An idea suddenly blossomed into his head. He tapped Reginald Spyglass on the arm with a croissant and explained what he had just been thinking. Reginald nodded along thoughtfully and then said, "So what do you propose to do?" Mr. Penguin puffed out his chest proudly. It wasn't often that he had very good ideas, but this was definitely one of them. "I am going to hypnotise Dr. Mesmero," he said. 2 minutes later, Mr. Penguin was standing on a stool in front of Dr. Mesmero, dangling Colin in front of her face, while everyone else gathered around. "Well, I think this is very unnecessary," Colin's pad said. "Shh," Mr. Penguin hissed. "This is important, Colin. Edith said that good hypnotists waggle a pocket watch in front of the person they're hypnotising. You read it in a library book, didn't you, Edith?" Edith nodded. "I don't have a pocket watch," continued Mr. Penguin, "so you'll have to do instead." Colin popped his pad away, rolled his eyes, and let himself dangle limply on the end of a strand of web. The room was silent. Mr. Penguin focused on Dr. Mesmero's eyes and the faint swells in her pupils. He took a deep breath and said in his nice telephone voice, "Dr. Veronica Mesmero, you no longer remember your old life as a mad doctor-inventor-hypnotist. You have no plans ever to take over the world. All you remember is a happy life here on the mountain. You will now help Dieter train Colonel Tuftybum for the next rodent games, and you will use your clever engineering skills to help Lyle fix and look after the Von Klonker clock. You will be happy and kind and—" Mr. Penguin thought for a moment, then continued, "And you will always make sure there's a jar of fish paste in the pantry. You will wake from your trance when I clap my flippers." Mr. Penguin lowered Colin's web and slapped his flippers together. Everyone watched intently, but Dr. Mesmero just sat there. Then suddenly she blinked. She shook her head and yawned. "Goodness," she said in a sparkly voice, "I must have nodded off for a moment. It's so cosy and warm in here." She looked around at everyone and smiled. It wasn't a snarly sort of grin like in the fortress, but a lovely friendly smile. "Ooh," she cried, "a party! I'd have brought some fish paste sandwiches if I'd known." Mr. Penguin beamed. His plan had worked. Last chapter.